Hello and welcome to episode 103 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I am one of the co-founders here at ETR. As always, I am joined by fellow co-founder Evan Silva. This is an unscheduled podcast. This is an emergency podcast, if you will. A lot has happened this week. We know you have drafts this weekend. Didn't want to leave you guys in the dark because we love you. We appreciate you. Evan, what's going on?
What's up, man? We are heading straight in the collision course for NFL cuts. It's going to be a wild, wild weekend. There are going to be lots of rankings changes over the weekend in reaction to the moves. And then we will have waiver wire pickups. I'm expecting a lot of trades, maybe not necessarily big-time trades, but trades that can affect depth charts. And so stay tuned with Establish the Run. Keep refreshing that change log because that's what I'm going to be doing all weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have drafts coming up still. I have a draft on Monday night. I have a draft on Tuesday night. At the same time, we have the first showdown slate of the season on Thursday. We have the first main slate of the season on Sunday. On today's pod, we're going to talk about Leonard Fournette signing with the Bucs. We're going to talk about all the latest news, all the latest rankings changes. Final reminder, I assume most of you listening to this already have the draft kit by now. I would hope so. You already have Silva's top 150, all the continuously updating rankings, the change log, all that to take to your draft. But many of you do not have the in-season package yet. Includes Silva's matchups, all my DFS content. We've added projections, all of our shows, a lot more. If you want to upgrade from draft kit only to in-season, shoot us a note, support@establishtheRun.com, and we'll get you squared away. Again, if you only have the draft kit, you want to get in-season, shoot us a note, support@establishtheRun.com. We will get you squared away at the right price. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm about 95% done with that the write up for Chiefs Texans, and that's a fun game to write up. That's going to be an awesome way to open the season. Last year, those teams played 2 games. The first played to like a 54-point total, and the second one played to an 82-point total. Man, I'm ready. My body is ready.
As long as Will Fuller doesn't pop a hamstring during that game on national television,
talk about it.
Then I'll consider it a win.
Yeah.
Okay. Big news comes out. This was late on Wednesday night. I was thinking, well, man, I hope Leonard Fournette doesn't sign with the Chiefs. But the only other place where I was like, man, Leonard Fournette can still be a win. I don't think he'll be a win in the third round, but maybe can be a win for people later on and salvage something would be the Bucs. Those are really the only 2 spots where I thought that it could happen. So Leonard Fournette signs with the Bucs. Let me say this first, Evan. I believe nothing that Bruce Arians says. It's like irrelevant. And I really do think it's like a skill, a soft skill that we have from doing this for so long. It's super valuable to know which coaches shoot straight in the media about player usage and which ones do not. Bruce Arians does not. So when he says, Rojo's still our guy, I'm still Rojo, it's his job to lose and all that. I don't believe Bruce Arians at all. Second, let's talk about roles. Here's what I'm thinking. Ronald Jones starts the season as the 1A, but Lenny pretty quickly moves ahead of him and settles in kind of a 60-40 split, maybe 65-35 split over Ronald Jones on early downs. I'm not sure they'll use a designated goal line back, but we'll see on that. And then on pass downs, I think it'll be one of Dare Gunawable or LaShawn McCoy, whichever one makes the team. And then Lenny will mix in behind them, maybe. I mean, I'm not sure exactly. Lenny's no great pass protector either. So look, I think this Fournette situation comes down to, do you think he comes in and just ices Ronald Jones before September is over completely? I think that's in the range of outcomes, but probably not the likeliest outcome. So for me, I'd be passing on Leonard Fournette in rounds 4 and round 5 for sure. And I'd personally probably pass in round 6 as well. But I understand there's a wide range of outcomes here. We pushed an article live on the site because there was some disagreement between all of us, and you got all of our opinions on there. Evan made his opinion known in his top 150. Tell the people what you think about Leonard Fournette to the Bucs and the fallout, Evan.
Well, my general stance on this backfield from day one has always been that Tom Brady is going to make the determination as to who is in the backfield alongside him, not the people that win the arguments on Twitter, not the people that win, the takes don't matter here. Tom Brady is going to dictate who is playing alongside him in the backfield. And Ronald Jones has never really seemed like the kind of back that Tom Brady would just be like, oh, yeah, I want him in the backfield with me at all times. So I'll just bring this up. So Mike Clay is one of the best, prognosticators statistically in all of, the fantasy universe. And he came out with his projections today. And these are mean projections. He's not really even taking like a hard stance on anybody. He has to take somewhat of a stance, but these are, this is mean median stuff. And he had Leonard Fournette as RB32. So that would be like a 7th, 8th round pick. Where I slotted him in, and we had him in RB22 to RB24 range, just kind of bouncing around there pretty much all off season. Some people were up on him in like, RB13. Some people even had him in like the top 10. But we were RB22 through RB24. And we moved, when he got cut, we moved him to RB32. And then I moved him to RB23 last night after the Buccaneers signed him. As you mentioned, the Buccaneers were one of the best landing spots. I think he's got big-time touchdown upside. Ronald Jones, wasn't a fan of him coming out of college. He really hasn't given me any reason to change that stance. And he struggles in the areas of the game that really matter most for a running back, which is receiving and pass protection to be able to play in the passing game. Leonard Fournette is, although he's not perfect in either of those areas, I think he's definitely better than Ronald Jones in those areas. And I think that will eventually bubble to the top. The Buccaneers, so one of the reasons that we didn't like Leonard Fournette in Jacksonville is because they projected for a ton of negative game script, and they had added, Chris Thompson to pull away a lot of the targets, and it wasn't a good situation for him. Now he goes to a team that I think that might field a top 5 defense, maybe a top 3 defense. The Buccaneers defense just got better progressively in the first year under Todd Bowles last year. They've got a young, really promising secondary. They've got 2 of the most athletic linebackers in the league in Devin Smith and Levante David. They are loaded up front with size on the interior and speed in the outside pass rush, and guys that have proven that they can rack up a ton of sacks, Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett in particular. So I think that this defense is going to be one of the best in the league, and that is going to lead to more positive games. And they're not going to be turning the ball over this season. So they're going to have a lot of favorable field position situations, and that is good for a running back. And I don't view Ronald Jones as, a really big hurdle. I do think that we're not going to be able to use Leonard Fournette in week 1. It's not a great matchup for Ronald Jones either in week 1 against the Saints. And then you have to worry about both of them. How many passes are they going to catch? Because, Drew Rosenhaus sent out a mass text today. He reps LaShawn McCoy. And he's like, we have word from the Buccaneers that they're not going to be cutting LaShawn McCoy, that he's going to be playing in the passing game. Dare Ogunbowale, who I do think will make the team, at least for his special teams value, also has, experience as like a third down / passing game back. So it's going to come down to touchdowns, I think, for Leonard Fournette. But he is in a way better situation to score touchdowns this year in Tampa Bay than he was in Jacksonville.
Yeah. To get down to it here, you have Leonard Fournette above Raheem Mostert, above Kareem Hunt, above Le'Veon Bell, above DeAndre Swift, above J.K. Dobbins. I think that it depends on the league, man. When news breaks this late in drafts, if you still have a draft to go, I could see somebody taking him in the 3rd round. I could see someone taking him in the 4th round. And to me, that's pretty crazy. Like I said, 5th or 6th round, I think I'm more okay with it, but I'd rather, if I can get DeAndre Swift or J.K. Dobbins or Kareem Hunt in the 6th or 7th, I would prefer that. And yeah, it's interesting on Leonard Fournette. I agree with everything you said. I want to make one thing clear, because people are going to say, Evan said that Leonard Fournette's not good. Adam said Leonard Fournette sucks. To be clear, in 2019, we were way higher than market on Leonard Fournette. Like any season-long draft, we had Leonard Fournette. I had Leonard Fournette all my season-long games. I played him.
We were drafting the crap out of him.
Oh my God, 3rd round, it was like automatic. It's more about the situation. And so, yeah, we bust balls about Leonard Fournette not being good at the running back position. What correlates to fantasy points the most is going to be opportunity and explosive offenses. And so Leonard Fournette is going to have that. I still have my skeptics about his actual opportunity. I think Evan sounds a little bit higher that he'll ice Ronald Jones, but wide range of outcomes there on Leonard Fournette. All right, let's get to the Alvin Kamara situation. And this situation was kind of, this is people I think kind of making a bigger deal out of something than it is. 4-year, $50 million deal on the table from the Saints to Alvin Kamara. I think that's fair for Alvin Kamara, given the running back market. Of course, Alvin Kamara's agents, it's their job to try to get more, So the Saints say, look, you couldn't get a better deal even if we trade you. See, we can prove it. So then it turns into a media mess. They were just trying to prove that they couldn't get more. They say, oh, we'll trade Alvin Kamara for a first-round pick. No one's going to trade for a running back, give up a first-round pick, and then pay him $14 million a year. It's just not happening. So Alvin Kamara will almost certainly be on the Saints come week 1. He's just so valuable to Drew Brees in that kind of short area option route kind of game. I mean, this team gave freaking Taysom Hill $21 million over 2 years. They're not going to give up on Alvin Kamara when this is Drew Brees' swan song. So I am very confident that Alvin Kamara will be on the field come week 1. I think you are too, as you left him as a number 4 overall pick. In half PPR and non-PPR, I would consider Derrick Henry over Alvin Kamara, but I'm not worried about Alvin Kamara's contract situation. We also had this epidural news. Anyways, a lot to swallow on Alvin Kamara. You did not move him. Tell the people why.
Yeah, I mean, the news of the epidural is really what sent some people into a tailspin. I mean, and I've never moved someone in my fantasy rankings over having an epidural. There are 2 types of epidural. I mean, obviously I put I've researched this at this point. There are 2 types of epidurals. One is would be a significant concern, but it sounds like the one that Alvin Kamara had was one that's not a big deal at all. It was just to treat some inflammation. Also, news of that emanated during this 24-hour period where it sounded like things got real ugly between the Saints. Actually, they certainly got real ugly between the Saints and Alvin Kamara, and there becomes a lot of posturing through the media. All of a sudden there's a report, oh, the Saints are willing to trade Alvin Kamara. Oh, Alvin Kamara had an epidural on his back, and all of this kind of emanated during this swift 24-hour period. And it was, the side sort of, bantering through the media. And now, Sean, and then Alvin Kamara comes back to practice. Everything kind of cools down. The Saints have a pretty good offer on the table to him. I think that everything's going to be fine. Maybe I'm being naive here, but I think that everything's going to be okay. And as you said, just zooming out and taking an irrational, pragmatic, vision on what is going on here, I think you're absolutely right that, I mean, the Saints aren't going to do this in Drew Brees, what is probably Drew Brees' final NFL season.
Yep, for sure. Okay. This one flew under the radar, and I don't think that it should, but the Chiefs are talking up Tyrell Williams in a big way. And there's been ESPN's Adam Tyker left DeAndre Washington off his final roster. Nate Taylor, who covers the Chiefs for The Athletic, did keep DeAndre Washington on the final roster, but said that Tyrell Williams is clearly the back, and he's going to play a ton. And so I think people are discounting how much Tyrell Williams is going to play, especially early. I saw some people say, man, CEH is going to have this massive workload in week 1. I think Tyrell Williams might play 30, 35, 40% of the running back touches, snaps in week 1 against the Texans there. I think they like Tyrell Williams as a pass protector, and you can make a case that Tyrell Williams might profile better at the goal line. So I have been prioritizing Tyrell Williams in drafts that I've done lately in the same spot where I used to be prioritizing DeAndre Washington. Unfortunately, I don't think it's crazy to take Tyrell Williams in the 12th or 13th round. The people who have asked me, in casual leagues, who will be the number 1 waiver pickup after week 1, I could see it being Tyrell Williams. What do you think about what's going on behind CEH right now?
Yeah, so that is definitely the Chiefs view Tyrell Williams as their best pass protection back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 5'7", 203, and Tyrell Williams is bigger, and they like him in that role. He's going to be an interesting, I think, play on showdown slates in week 1. I mean, he's bigger than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's not crazy to think that he could be getting goal line carries against the Texans. I think that if Clyde Edwards-Helaire were to go down, they would not lean exclusively on Tyrell Williams, though, and then DeAndre Washington could come into the picture, assuming he makes the team, or Darwin Thompson could come back into the picture. But I think we're gonna get some clarification this weekend, because I think that one of these guys is probably going to get cut. Not Tyrell Williams, obviously, or I think that that's a long shot that he would have. It sounds like he has a legitimate week 1 role. I think one of these other guys might get cut, though, and that will narrow down the backfield entering week 1.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Oh,
Other
and
contract.
we did move Tyrell Williams ahead
Oh, yeah.
of DeAndre Washington. And I think that I probably should even move him up a little bit higher than where he is. I'm going to add that to my to-do list right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. We get so many questions about when the rankings update. It says right in the headline, rankings are continuously updating, and Evans top 150. He also puts the timestamp of when he made his last update. You can see what he changed in the change log as well. Speaking of running back contract news, Joe Mixon gets his extension, 4 years, $48 million. And, I think that's a fair deal for Joe Mixon if they use him in the pass game. Because if you don't use Joe Mixon in the pass game, I mean, last year, just 2.8 targets per game, the money is going to look like a lot of money for Joe Mixon. But still, he's locked up. I think that's a good thing for Joe Mixon heading into the year. This Bengals offense has some serious upgrade firepower. Reports on Joe Burrow have been quite strong. So I think that Joe Mixon, if you're looking for safety in the back end of the first round, like Joe Mixon is safe pick. What do you think about the extension for Joe Mixon and how it affects where you'd rank him or take him late in the first round?
Yeah, it definitely increases confidence in Joe Mixon as being one of the safest. And no running back pick is really, I mean, dudes get injured. This is football, so everything is relative when we talk about safe picks. But I think that he's one of the safest picks, relatively speaking, at the back end of the first round. We've been a little bit higher than market on him throughout the year. I got a lot of him in drafts in like June and July. I started backing off drafting because I was just getting so much of him. But I feel better about those picks now. I ticked him up. I didn't move him, from a running back ranking standpoint. He's been the RB9 like forever. But I did move him ahead of Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams in the overall. That is still very much a personal preference thing, and but in such a running back thirsty year, and in a year where I really want to make sure that I come out of rounds 1 and 2 with at least one stud RB, I think that is the correct move to have him actually ahead of wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2.
Yeah, and we've talked so much about positional scarcity and workhorse scarcity and everything. I don't think we need to go back into that now, but that's going to come down to a lot of the decisions that you make between Joe Mixon types, Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams. Okay, Patriots backfield. I'm kind of tired about talking this, but we had another twist and another turn. First, Sony Michel gets back in practice. First, Damian Harris emerges. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh gosh, well now Sony Michel gets back early from his foot injury. He's been back practicing in full. And now we get news this morning, Thursday, that Damian Harris hurt his finger. He's in doubt for week 1, and that's particularly scary in the pass game. And man, so, these Damian Harris shares are certainly not looking as good as they looked before. Sony Michel, we've been way low on him all off season, but it's just looking like it's James White or bust in this backfield to me right now. And I know Evan was on that early. Credit to him. I was a little bit skeptical on it, but yeah, it looks like James White's gonna be the only one we can possibly think about using in week 1 right now, although we'll see if Damian Harris ends up active or not.
Yep. I mean, just completely agree. I think that James White is just going to end up dominating snaps in this backfield. If the Patriots do what they did with Tom Brady and with what worked for Cam Newton for the first 10 games of 2018, then James White is going to play a ton of snaps and be featured in the quick passing game. The Patriots cut Mohamed Sanu, who's another short area possession receiver. That sort of opens up areas of the field for James White. Their receiver core is again not looking very good. I mean, they're going to again have to lean on Julian Edelman, who's a year older and has been limited throughout training camp. I mean, I think he's fine, but he has been limited throughout training camp. N'Keal Harry, the reports every day are up and down on him, and so James White's going to be a huge part of this. This is going to be a James White year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the reasons the Patriots cut Mohamed Sanu, and they had to be embarrassed to do it after giving up a second-round pick last year, but you can't play like Sanu, N'Keal Harry, and Julian Edelman, who all like win in kind of like the same areas. So they're going to probably play like Damiere Byrd as their third receiver just to like clear the field out and try to create some space. I don't know how that's going to go, but yeah,
It's
James
rough,
White.
Man.
Yeah.
It's rough.
I mean, Dwayne, who works with us, Dwayne, tweeted out the number 2 receiver this year is going to be James White. And, maybe that's not so crazy of a take. Okay. Bad news on the injury front, man. Ian Thomas turf toe, and Carolina's downplaying it. Carolina's saying this is not a severe case of turf toe for Ian Thomas. They expect him to be okay, but man, turf toe scares me. It can linger for so long with guys, can sap their explosiveness. So man, I would not. Evan has moved, or already had, I'm not sure which, Ian Thomas at the back of that tier. And so Chris Herndon, Mike Gesicki, TJ Hawkinson, Hunter Henry, Noah Fant, Dallas Goedert, Blake Jarwin, like all those guys are available so late. Given this turf toe concern, it feels like there's no reason to really force Ian Thomas in that tier. I'm a little disappointed for DFS because Ian Thomas was only 3,400 in week 1 against the Raiders. But I think we're going to have some access to some other guys that we'll talk about next week from a DFS perspective of the cheap range of tight ends. But anyways, has Ian Thomas's turf toe injury affected how you feel about him in season-long drafts?
He's going late enough that I still think, I mean, I got him in the 15th round of main event FFPC with tight end premium like I don't know, a week ago or something like that. And I mean, he's going late enough that I think he still makes sense there. It doesn't sound like a severe case of turf toe. I mean, you don't love to hear it, but I think that his ADP is low enough that he's still worth taking shots late. I mean, those guys, guys that you draft like in the 15th round, like they end up, if you're doing it right, like there's a roster churn with those guys. You hope that they're hits, but very often they're not. And you just use those guys to roster churn and make waiver wire pickups and sub them out. But I still think, based on his athleticism, based on his opportunity, based on the fact that he runs routes in the short area of the field where Teddy Bridgewater throws the ball best, 15th, 16th round, even with turf toe, I think still makes sense.
Yeah, I think we'll know more about this injury based on what the Panthers do, because right now, like Chris Manhertz is like, I mean, he can't catch the ball at all, and he's like their only tight end, basically. If they add some type of pass-catching tight end, we'll know they're more worried about Ian Thomas's turf toe, so we'll keep an eye on that. Jets situation. Brashad Perriman's knee thing doesn't sound great. I mean, it sounds like every time he practices, he gets swelling in his knee, and this is the kind of thing that can linger. He's had knee injuries before, obviously. If he can go, Denzel Mims did get back in practice, but even if Perriman can go, I expect their starting 3-wide set in week 1 to be Perriman, who's somewhat hobbled, and Chris Hogan on the outside, Jamison Crowder in the slot, Denzel Mims. We'll see if he's even active or if he plays kind of a limited role. But all this is adding up to me to be Chris Herndon's season, to be Jamison Crowder's season. I know we've talked about this a ton already. We'll talk more about Chris Herndon next week when we get into DFS stuff for sure. Not a great matchup against Buffalo. But anyways, Brashad Perriman, have you been moving Brashad Perriman down in the rankings with these knee issues?
I already had him real low. I mean, and for a guy who still projects to lead the Jets in air yards, like wide receiver 50 range is just, I'm not going to move him. It's not encouraging. And I would like to actually be way above market on him in an ideal world, because I think that he can play. But it is truly reminiscent of his rookie year when he suffered a PCL injury, and John Harbaugh would think he would be back, and he was coming back, and then he wouldn't be back, and then John Harbaugh like really got frustrated with it, and that was sort of the beginning of him becoming a bust in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And the situation is like almost reminiscent of that now with the Jets. So I mean, I still think that he is the favorite to lead the Jets in air yards, but he's not someone that I'm looking to draft aggressively anymore.
Okay, another wide receiver on a questionable pass game who is hurt is Tyrell Williams. And we talked about this previously when he said he was going to play through it. Now Tyrell Williams is on injured reserve, going to miss the whole year. And the Bryan Edwards hive is alive and well, Evan. I think Bryan Edwards will likely start on the outside opposite Henry Ruggs with Hunter Renfrow in the slot. And they also have Nelson Aguilar. They also have Zay Jones. So we'll see on that. But still, I mean, trying to get Derek Carr to support Bryan Edwards, Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, Jalen Richard, Lynn Bowden, and then also Josh Jacobs, to also pay off a first round, early second round ADP. That's asking a lot of the Raiders offense, which, as we've detailed, has a very, very difficult schedule. Have you moved Bryan Edwards up at all? Is Bryan Edwards in the top 150? Are you interested at all in the fallout from Tyrell Williams landing on IR?
No, Edwards is like 160 right now. He's like really on the fringe of the top 150. I think the final receiver in the top 150 right now is Preston Williams, and I'm not going to put Bryan Edwards ahead of Preston Williams. I like Bryan Edwards. Don't get me wrong. I think that the Bryan Edwards hive has sort of jumped the shark a little bit for all the reasons that you mentioned. I wanted to try to move up Henry Ruggs, but we're already like way higher than consensus on him, and it's hard to get him above like Marvin Jones and in that range. So no, I didn't make any moves based off the Tyrell Williams, but I initially did because just when word came out that he had the labrum tear or whatever, I made moves then. But when he went on IR, it was sort of almost like, well, I kind of expected that.
Yeah. Okay, finally, some good news, wide receiver injury. Deebo Samuel, and I don't know how he's doing this from a Jones fracture, but he's supposed to practice next week ahead of week 1. And they say they don't know if he's going to play week 1, but that certainly bodes well for Deebo Samuel coming back and playing week 2, week 3, sometime in September. And so I think there's been a big discount on Deebo Samuel's ADP as he comes off this foot injury. I think some leagues, if people are paying attention to the injury, you probably could have gotten him in 12th or 13th round or something like that. We don't necessarily know what Brandon Ayuk is going to be at in week 1 with his hamstring injury. But yeah, good news on Deebo Samuel. Have you been moving him up? Are you more likely to take Deebo Samuel now than you were, say, a couple weeks ago? Because I think at least that makes some sense.
I haven't moved him up. And the recurrence of this injury, this Jones fracture injury, is 50%. Historically for wide receivers, it has just absolutely crippled wide receiver seasons. It's not, I mean, that's nice if he's practicing ahead of week 1, but that doesn't mean that he's going to play in week 1. What is his conditioning really going to be like? I mean, people can take him, but it's a little high risk for me.
Yeah. And I think we'll see. You need to play your draft with how the market reacts. If they think that he's fine and he starts going in round 7, round 8, that's probably way too early. Later flyers, I'm more okay with it. All right. Last story before we get out of here is Josh Gordon. People are excited. People love Josh Gordon. I love Josh Gordon too. The number 3 wide receiver role, however, on Seattle is not a very high usage role. Last year, he played 5 games. He only saw 7% of the targets, and that's already on a low volume pass game team. We also don't know if Josh Gordon is going to be suspended to start the year. I think that's certainly still possible. So Josh Gordon would still be a pass for me, only in the deepest of leagues. I don't know, 22, 24 rounds or something like that. Any reaction to the Josh Gordon signing with Seattle news? I think this was pretty expected.
Yeah, no, I don't have and I'm a big Josh Gordon fan, but it's not a good situation for him to be productive in the box score clearly behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He played under 40% of the snaps when he was on the Seahawks roster last year. I think it's an upgrade for the team. I think it's it could pay off for the team in the third receiver role over Philip Dorsett. But this is another team that can use tight end sets. I mean, they have one of the deepest tight end depth charts in the league. They're going to run the ball a lot. Good, potentially good real life signing, and it doesn't really move the needle in fantasy.
All right. That is going to do it for what I expect to be. Maybe we'll see what we can do early next week, but we start to get into regular season mode. So if this is the last off-season podcast of the year, just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has tuned in throughout the off-season. Been incredibly fun building up this podcast and getting it to where we want it to be. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as well. Hope you choose to pick up the draft kit, pick up the in-season package. It is everything that we think you need to win, and we've worked incredibly hard on it, and we will be extremely busy for the next 17, 20 weeks doing it for you guys. Nothing more we'd like to do. Okay. Appreciate you all. Signing off for Evan, for Luke. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.